Welcome to another edition of the Invisible Wheelchair Interview Podcast. I'm Donald Grodoff, family coach with FamilyOCD.com, FocusedHealthyFamily.com, and of course, InvisibleWheelchair.com. In the Invisible Wheelchair interviews, I get the wonderful chance to interview some of the experts with obsessive-compulsive disorders, professionals that treat OCD, people who are going through or have been through OCD, parents and caregivers of those suffering from OCD, and of course anyone that advocates for treatment of OCD. My goal of these interviews is to inform people on all aspects of OCD and bring about awareness of obsessive-compulsive disorder. The content, information, resources, and ideas that are talked about and brought up here in these interviews are not necessarily the views and opinions of myself, Family OCD, Focused Healthy Family, and Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, and I always recommend to seek additional professional help in finding solutions for yourself. You can find out more about me at FamilyOCD.com, FocusedHealthyFamily.com, and InvisibleWheelchair.com. It is my privilege today to have as my guest a brain expert. His name is Jack White. Jack has been studying and researching brain science since he was 13 years old. At a very early age, he experienced 2 concussions, one on the right side and one on the left side of his brain. These brain injuries caused severe ADHD symptoms, resulting in his own personal journey of searching for answers on how to address anxiety, depression, insomnia, and chronic stress scientifically. Jack was able to overcome these life-robbing symptoms by working with a team of brain-smart, knowledgeable healthcare practitioners and by applying the world-class, cutting-edge neuroscience technologies. Jack is the president of Alpha Team Medical, a biochemist, an applied neuroscience researcher, and clinical educator who earned a Bachelor of Science in Biology and a minor in Chemistry with a Biochemistry concentration from Appalachian State University. Alpha Team Medical is a medical device company specializing in life-changing neuromodulation technology for optimal brain health. He has trained thousands of patients and hundreds of practitioners on how to use neuromodulation technology to experience some amazing breakthroughs in relief from anxiety, insomnia, depression, and pain symptoms. Jack's vision and passion is to inspire you to be your own brain wellness coach because ultimately you are the bottom line and in charge of making the best decisions for your brain wellness and for those you care about most in your life. So let's go to that interview now. Well, Jack, I really appreciate you being part of the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, and I welcome you.
Well, thank you, Don. I'm excited to finally for us to do this. We've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah, so, what I always do with the people that I interview on my podcast is I like to get a little bit more of a personal feel of the person, and so my audience can get a better feel of you also. Can you share with us maybe a little bit of story about what your life and how you got here, maybe something of that sort?
I was a very active child, Don. I almost hyperactive, and I suffered from 2 serious head injuries before I was the age of 7. I got knocked out on the left side of my head and on the right side. And that pretty much set me up for some serious cognitive challenges. We know, based off of the football studies, when you get hit in the head, well, that can affect you the rest of your life. And so sure enough, going through life, I was having challenges with focus, thinking, making good decisions. My dad used to always say, grab his 2 earlobes and say, son, life happens between your two ears. And what he was saying to me is that you got to start learning how to use your brain and make better decisions. And I was very challenged with that because of those head concussions. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to study the most brilliant minds, and I'm going to become a biochemist so that I can get my brain to work better. And that's what I did. That's where I became a biochemist and started working with a team of medical doctors specializing in working with a population of young kids and adults that suffer from the worst kind of anxiety, insomnia, and focus, and OCD. And I think that was right about the time that you and I met back in 2012.
Yeah, I remember that time we were working with Abby, my daughter. I did a podcast with her, an interview, so that's why I mentioned her name. We realized in the work we did with her, we had to get the anxiety down. We couldn't do anything else. All the anxiety that was associated with the OCD was off the charts. Until we got that down, until we could get that down, we couldn't do anything else. So that it was a real key part of us, and that's where you came in. I mean, your work was in biochemistry, but you said that led you to how you found out about the alpha stem, correct?
Yes, it's like as I was focused on helping these patients with the lab testing, the protocols that I was designing along with the medical team, as a clinical educator, I suddenly realized the biochemistry, the molecule is only about 2% of how the brain communicates. 98% of the way the brain and the body communicates is through the electrical system. When you see someone's heart rates, that little signal at a hospital, that's a life's electrical signal. So the brain has electrical signal too. And I started thinking, how can we help support the brain chemistry and help it to be optimal so that it addresses those horrific symptoms? Because usually with OCD and anxiety and insomnia and all that, you're going to have a brain chemistry profile where you're going to have brain chemicals that are off the chart, excitement, and the brain chemicals that you need to calm you down and help you have that sense of well-being are going to be really low and burned out. And so the more I studied and researched and looked at some of the cutting-edge neuroscience studies, I started realizing the pharmaceutical industry of adjusting molecules, that's an old model. And so even using nutraceuticals or natural means, you're just adjusting molecules. If you work with the electrical systems of the brain, then you get to work with something much more powerful, much more effective, and it works very, very rapidly, and the results are incredible without the side effect. I started looking at the whole neuromodulation field, and that's where I discovered this technology called alpha stem therapy.
Let's explain what neuromodulation means, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how anxiety works and then how neuromodulation can change that.
Neuro means mind, brain. Modulation means balance. So we want to bring balance to the brain, and we want it to function optimally. We have electricity in our body helps all the cells function the way they're supposed to. That's how our cells communicate. That's how everything gets done inside the human body with what's called bioelectricity, or the life electrical system.
Maybe we also can go into just a little bit about what anxiety does to the brain or how it affects the brain.
So if we are an electrical system, then symptoms are electrical imbalances. Every symptom you have is going to involve circuits. You can't have a symptom without circuits firing, causing that symptom. If you can imagine the circuits as like a record, like a jukebox. When you have anxiety, then someone's pushed your buttons and they're playing a song or a record that's causing anxiety. If you can figure out how to push another button in your brain and nervous system, then you can play a relaxing record. You can do that if you have the right tools. You can actually shift your brain and your brain state from anxiety into peacefulness and calmness and a sense of well-being. And you can do it pretty quick if you're using technology that helps to balance the electrical system in the brain. And this is the sort of technology that has least side effects of anything I've seen. For example, one of the devices we're going to talk about is the Alpha Stim, where you put these little ear clips on your earlobes and turn it on, and very quickly it begins to soothe and balance and calm down overactivation.
Can you tie that into the anxiety around OCD and how that's just that? What's happening in the OCD brain with anxiety?
You've got not only circuits that are misfiring, you also have brain chemistry that's get out of balance. Because remember, the molecules take instructions from the circuits. And so if you got circuits that are amped up, well, you're going to have brain chemicals that are amped up too. It's going to be the chemicals like adrenaline, norepinephrine, dopamine. These type of brain chemicals, they put you in that state of mind where you can't get access to your thinking. You just suddenly go into this fight or flight and you become very emotional, and it takes you out of the most powerful part of your brain, and that's your thinking brain. When someone's in panic and anxiety or an OCD state, brain state, it's kind of hard to make any sense to them. Have you discovered that yourself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, what my daughter was thinking at the time was so illogical. It made absolutely no sense to any of us except her. And even to her, I don't think it really made sense, but it was what was considered by her as being right. It threw off her thinking. A lot of times she was a zombie. You know, she would just, she'd get the glazed look in her eyes, you know. So, yeah, it affected her thinking ability in a lot of different ways.
So whenever you're having anxiety that comes along with the OCD, and you start to get stuck in that loop, that brain loop, and you got all those very powerful brain chemicals circulating, you're in fight or flight. It takes you out of the front part of your brain, so you can't think through what someone's saying to you. You can't even think your way out of it. You're caught in a vicious cycle. It's like your brain is locked up.
How does the Alpha Stim work to bring down that anxiety? What is it doing?
The Alpha Stim technology, and the reason why the United States military uses it, is that you're putting these ear clips on the earlobe, so you're putting it directly where the fight or flight part of the brain is, and cause it to start to calm down and go into a balanced state. So with the Alpha Stim technology, you're taking the person out of the fight or flight so quickly.
Well, and that's what we saw with my daughter, and then later on with my younger son, we went through it too, and I was amazed. I mean, especially the second time around with my youngest one, having to see him. He woke up in the middle of the night screaming and panicking, going through this. I didn't put the Alpha Stim on him at that moment because I found one of the things I found with that is that like my daughter would, if I tried to bring that up during the hardest time, she would just don't put that stupid thing on. You know, she would go berserk over it. I had to be mindful how I did it, but we did it the next day for him. We got quieted down. We were able to through talking and working and stuff. But the next day I put it on him, and then from then on for the next 6 months I put it on him. But it immediately the next day I put it on him. That next night he woke up at about 2:00, but he wasn't screaming, he wasn't yelling, the anxiety wasn't as high. And then I kept doing it. So by the third night, he slept through the night. It also affected his social behavior, and he was angry. The anxiety was causing anger for him, and keeping it on him and working on him every day. I worked on it. We put it on him for 2 times a day. And then within 6 months, his social situation completely changed, and it had amazing effect on them of bringing that down, like you said, within minutes. What I was going to ask you here, Jack, is how would people get in touch with you or find out more about this? Because I think, like I said, there's a lot more to this. We're only touching the surface of this, but how would they find out more? Can you give us some of the ways they can find out more about you?
Absolutely. If you go to my website at alphateammedical.com, and that's www.alpha, like ALPHA, team, TEAM, medical, invisiblewheelchair.com. They can always call me. My contact information is on the website.
Well, again, thank you, Jack, and I will have that information up on the invisiblewheelchair.com site, so for that website also. So, again, thanks, Jack, and you take care, and again, appreciate it.
Thank you, Don.
This concludes this podcast. We really would appreciate your comments. Simply leave a comment at www.invisiblewheelchair.com. There, you're able to submit a comment that will help us determine future podcasts. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please email don@invisiblewheelchair.com. Remember, there is a corresponding tapping recording for each of the podcasts, with the exception of the interview podcast. You can find these tapping recordings and archive past podcasts at www.invisiblewheelchair.com. Finally, there is relief for OCD, and we at FamilyOCD.com and FocusedHealthyFamily.com can help you find that relief. Again, you can contact us through those sites, FamilyOCD.com or FocusedHealthyFamily.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at InvisibleWheel1, that's the number 1, or at FamilyOCD. So thank you for listening. Keep tapping and transcending your life to new heights.